Hey everybody, you're watching Ready Set Drone, and today we're going to give you a tutorial on how to do tracking with the Air 3S in the DJI Fly app. There's a lot of parameters when it comes to tracking, and we're going to show you how to use all of them, so stay tuned. All right, so we're out in the field, literally in a field, and what we're going to do is we're going to test all of the tracking modes, that is Spotlight, Point of Interest, and Active Track, and kind of show you how each of them works, because each of them has some little things and parameters you can do with it. We just kind of went through them all to make sure we were clear on how they all worked, so we're going to show you right now. Okay, Chris has agreed to be my guinea pig in this situation. So what I'm going to do is take the drone up, go ahead and draw my little square around him. So first of all, I'll do Active Track. When you push Active Track, you get this little selector over here on the left side where you can select the closer distance, and that would be closer distance, it's going behind him. And then once it gets behind him, it's gonna stop, and then he should be able to walk, and it's just gonna follow him from that perspective, from behind him, which it's doing right now. He's gonna run, it's still following him. Now, if I want to go a little higher, I can just use the throttle stick and go up a little bit, and it'll keep tracking him, and it'll tilt the camera to adjust. Now, if I want to go to his right and a little further away, I push right there. You can see that green outline shows that it's going over to that space on his right. The little human icon represents the human, and it's going to go around him on the right. And same thing, if I want to get a little closer, I push the inner ring, it'll come in a little closer and stay on his right. He's trying to confuse it by walking backwards and changing direction. So a couple other things to show you about tracking. You can go into this menu right here and go to Control, and then you can go to Focus Tracking Settings, and that's where you can actually switch between vehicle and person, depending on what you're trying to track. So I'm going to stick with person. You can also adjust the distance of those two circles. So right now I've got the outer circle at 45 feet and the inner circle at 13 feet. We're in kind of a smallish parking lot, so I'm gonna keep both these fairly close. I'm gonna set the outer circle to 25 feet, 26 feet, and the inner circle to, let's say, 16 feet. And then I'll also show you that you can switch the heights. So for the inner height, I'm gonna go to 13.1, and for the outer circle I'll go to 30 feet. Your camera motion can either be fast or normal, and then you can do this thing where it's near ground flight, which allows it to get closer to the ground while it's tracking. I'm going to leave that turned off for the moment, but I'm going to go ahead and start tracking Chris in Active Track. I'll hit record, and it's set to follow him from behind, which it's doing right now. But if I want to, I could go ahead and switch it over here to the side. Going to come over to the side, and it's going to go a little higher because I set the outer ring to be higher, which is good because it went above those trees. So now it's trying to track him from the side at that higher height. And of course he's going in a fairly small, tight circle, so it's really moving to keep up with him. Now if you just tell it to go from behind him, which it is right now, to his side, it's going to do that at the shortest possible distance. But if you want it to do like almost a complete orbit around him before it ends up in that other position, so for example, I'm going to say go all the way around whatever path I choose. So if I want it to go around him counterclockwise, I'll do what I just did. But if I want it to go around him clockwise, once it's reached that spot, I can tell it to go clockwise. So now it's going to go clockwise. So you have a little bit of control as to which direction it goes around the subject, depending on how you draw that little line. Okay, there's this other little button that you can press when you're tracking called the auto button. All right, I just hit the auto button, and it should start to do some things kind of on its own at different angles in the auto mode. I don't know, I think auto mode seems a little bit unpredictable. Like I know it's over near some trees now, but I can't tell how close it is to those trees. Chris is stopping. All right, I took it up above the trees just to be safe. So I guess as soon as you give it some stick input, it takes it out of auto mode. And when I raised it up to get above those trees, it took it out of auto mode. It kind of seems like auto mode might be the kind of thing where if you're not moving, it just gives you a variety of angles and kind of looks. Like right now it's just kind of doing this little bit of a difference in distance and difference in angle on its own. But I definitely don't think auto mode is something to use when you're going fast, and if there's any sort of obstacles around like trees or power lines or something, I wouldn't use auto mode. It draws a little blue line and then it follows that blue line in auto mode. Like right now it's just going back and it showed the little blue line to say I'm going from here to here. So I could see where if you just wanted an automatic shot from different angles of something going on the ground, somebody's doing yoga or taekwondo or something, and you're in a big open space, you could do this auto mode and it would just give you a whole bunch of different angles of whatever is going on, whoever the person is that's locked on.
Another way you can enable focus track mode is by tapping the icon on the left side of the screen. Doing this will give you little plus signs that indicate what you can track. Sometimes this is a more precise way to choose a specific person or vehicle to track. In active track mode, there is this little obstacle avoidance icon. Tapping it will bring up the relevant obstacle sensing camera. You can maximize that screen if you want by tapping on that, and then tap the lower left camera view to switch back. If you want to keep it on screen, you can drag it around and position it where you want, or you can minimize it by tapping the icon again or the lower left corner of that view. It's always nice to trust but also verify when it comes to obstacle avoidance, so having it on screen definitely gives me peace of mind. I do have one quick warning to share. If you are used to swiping through the different views on the lower left corner, don't do that while active tracking, because you'll make a path that the drone will try to follow. Luckily, in this instance, I hit the pause button before anything bad happened.
So that is active track. Really great for following a subject when you want to keep on one side of that subject. So I'm going to stop active track and I'm going to hit point of interest. Now what point of interest will do is it will orbit him either going clockwise or counterclockwise, and it'll go at a speed depending on how far you slide this little thing. So if I slide this all the way over to fast, it's going to try and orbit him quickly while he's walking or while he's standing still. And you can also control your altitude here. So if I want to go a little higher, more of a top-down perspective, I can do that. Or if I want to get a little lower, use the stick to come back down to where it's a little more level with us. I can slow that down. I can also go the other direction. So that is point of interest. And then finally, spotlight is where it tracks the subject from wherever it is. It doesn't actually move. It just tries to keep track of him by yawing and tilting the camera. So you can see right now it's just kind of locked on him. Now I could move it backwards a little bit and it would stay locked on him. If he's getting too far away, I could bring it closer, and then when I let go, it'll just stop wherever it is and try to keep tracking him. But there's no other parameters you can adjust other than using the stick. One other thing I want to show you is that you can actually use the telephoto lens. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to 3x. So we're in 3x, that's our telephoto lens. And you can do all those same things. You just draw a square around the person. So now it's in spotlight mode, and as he moves, it's going to have to pan a little faster to keep up with him, but it is keeping up with him. Now I'll try point of interest, and I'll tell it to orbit. But it's doing that with the telephoto, so it gives you a little bit more of a parallax effect. Chris is a trooper to be out here in the jacket in the heat. It's December, but it's 80 degrees today. And then finally, active track. With the camera zoomed in, I'll tell it to track from his right side. So it's gonna swing around and try to stay on his right side. All right, so that is point of interest, active track, and spotlight, kind of summarized. One other quick thing I was gonna try and do was to see if I could active track him from straight below. So tilt the camera all the way down. There's Chris. And what's interesting is it's kind of a little later in the day, so we've got a long shadow. So I'll draw the square around him and I'll say active track, and it says unable to switch subjects. So let me just try this again. Draw the square around him, active track. All right, so it's active tracking you now. And what's interesting is it sees the shadow as him. and that messes with it. So I think it lost it. Yeah, it doesn't work. Can't really do it from straight above. So as we all know, Active Track is pretty solid when it's following behind you. But with the Air 3S and with other DJI drones, you can set the track to be in front of you or beside you. Right now, Chris has it set to be in front of me, and I think tracking in front is going to be a lot harder than tracking from behind because it's got to sort of anticipate what your moves are. So if I go this way, will it swing around in front of me? Yeah, it looks like it's doing that. It's flying backwards. And now I'm going to make a big looping turn to the left. And see, it's got a long way it's got to travel to stay in front of me. I've just made a quick turn, but it's got to go all the way around. It's like the center of a hand on a clock versus the end of the hand on the clock. The end is traveling a lot faster than the center because it's got further to go. So it's now having to do that same thing. So now I'm going to kind of go a little bit quickly, and then I'm going to make a big left turn here, and it's going to make this really fast turn to try and stay in front of me. It seems like it's doing pretty well. And again, there's a power line over there I don't want it to hit, so I'm going to not go too far. It really does those turns fast to try and stay in front of you. But kind of in a big open area like this, with few obstacles, it's doing pretty well. One thing you have to keep in mind is even though you're active tracking, that doesn't necessarily mean you are recording. So you have to hit record so it'll actually start recording the active track.